Good afternoon, Purvi. First of
Very
all,
good afternoon, Deepak.
First of all, I would like to thank you for sparing time for this interview, and it would be an honor to feature you in my book. And before I start firing my questions, I wanted to mention here that while I was going through your journey, I was wondering that you have not only worked with brands like ICICI, Kotak, HDFC, Vodafone, and finally your own baby Pahel, but you have also made a great mark in these organizations. So I'm not going into detail right now on the roles and what you have been doing there, but for sure these positions demand too much, right? And all said and done, but being a woman and having a career is definitely a tough nut to crack, especially in India. So my first question is,
being Purvi is, somebody who's, I believe, I don't think gender is all that important. At least that's what I always felt. It is all in your mind. So, if you feel that I can't do this, I can't do that, there is a glass ceiling that you always feel, that is all within you. So I never, believed, or I never took as an excuse for doing or not doing something. And I always ensure that I don't get any favor anywhere by virtue of my gender. I always wanted to be treated this is the merit and not because of my gender. So I think, in one word, if I have to put it, it's your own mindset that defines you. The kind of person that you become, the way you handle the challenges and all of that. So I think mindset is most important.
absolutely, bang on. And how Pahel came into picture, like from where there's...
Okay. So, when I was at the peak of my career, I always used to think I really want to give something back to the society. And generally, when you work in corporates and at Chai Ki Kitli and, all the conferences and meetings, we always keep complaining about this is not right, that is not right, government is not doing this, our company is not doing that. So I always believe that, while complaining about what is not right and what is right and the way it should be is one part of it, but you should also make an effort to correct things in whatever little, in your own small little way that you can. So I always wanted to create something where rather than you are on a receiving end, you are at least on a giving side. And, so when I was quite serious about it. So we made first attempt in 2008. And we failed, couple of attempts did fail. That made our resolve, even more stronger that, we want to do it. Me and my partner, both of us were quite firm that, we really want to achieve this dream of creating something. We really want to create something which we can, not that we live for our, kids, but, we live for the society. We create an institution which is like somebody should feel proud about.
Wow.
For that institution, and we also take a lot of pride in what we create. So that's where it all started, with the idea of giving back and not complaining.
Right.
Things not to be right, but be a part of that process.
Great, wonderful. And where are we in terms of number today? Like how many branches, how many number of cases, people, customer? You want to just show some numbers?
So it has been a very fantastic journey for us. So we started possibly at a very wrong time. Anybody could have started this business. So it was immediately after the crisis where nobody would even think of starting. So we started at a very wrong time.
Right.
But from that start today, we are now present in 7 states.
Right.
We have about 150 branches and about 1,250 people working for us, and a portfolio of close to about 750 crore. So that's quite satisfying. And the good part is that we have got some very reputed investors who are backing us, in this journey. So,
I think all this has happened in last, 5 years, 6 years max.
Yeah, so we started in 2011, but first 2-3 years, as I said, it was it took us a lot of time to establish ourselves. But yeah, the true progress happened in last 5 to 6 years.
Right. Perfect. So I have a lot to ask on Pahel, but I would restrict myself here because then it would be more of my personal interest which is going into that. But otherwise, because since we want to focus on customer experience because that's the topic of the book. So I want to understand, you have been a hardcore customer experience professional, right? You have seen into multiple industries, and telecom is one which is where you have a customer who is as low as 100 rupees, pay you 100 rupees in a month, and then as high as could be paying you 5,000 rupees in a month or 5 lakh rupees in a month. So you understand the entire dynamism of customer experiences and the customer expectation, right?
So I think if you ask me, I started with financial services and then banking, where we were handling very elite customers and all, to Vodafone, where very low value customers, to a microfinance, which is again a very, bottom of pyramid, very vulnerable, financial excluded set of customers. So I have seen varied set of customers, during this career, which I think customer experience, irrespective of which category of customers you are serving, customer experience is one of the most critical part of business. And if I give you an example, it's not like it's like you are creating a building, and customer service cannot be used as a furniture or an art piece. It has to go down foundation. It has to be there as a pillar on which the organization stands, and not something which is like artificially imposed.
Right.
Experience is that important. And if I talk about microfinance, and particularly in the context of my own company, it has gone so much deep down in our DNA that sometimes we don't even talk about customer experience and customer satisfaction, because it is always there. It is there. It is always every time you assume that it is there. That's the basic premise on which everything works.
Right.
Is that critical? I think the most critical factor in business is ensuring customer experience, to my opinion.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And since you've worked with a lot of brands and now it's your own organization, I think one common observation you must have also done that generally the customer experience, especially in when the organization grows to a particular size, it has been limited to a particular department. And the entire spirit of customer experience as a brand, reflection of brand, I think somewhere takes a back seat.
So if you ask me about my corporate experience, all the brands that I work for, and with due respect to all the brands, they are all doing fantastic. And as a customer, I am also using most of the brands. So I'm very happy with those brands. But I think if you, go to the management team, customer service was always, a department. And, most people were so busy in either bringing in the customers or extracting revenue from the customers, or at least, if the customer is trying to leave, you are just trying to retain that customer. But nobody was, I always felt that ownership of customer was always missing.
Right.
But, when we were creating our own organization, and particularly in microfinance per se, this industry itself is quite, customer centric, and we are even more customer centric. So, it is like, for us, customer service, we don't have any department called customer service. I think it is every department owns that customer, whether it is finance, whether it is audit, or whether it is operations. So we made that very clear right from the day one. So when we had no senior management or middle management, and we were operating like me, my co-founder, and shop floor.
Right.
So we did that for many years. So by then it had become sort of a habit. It had gone so deep down in our system that everybody owns the customer and everybody is equally responsible. So in a nutshell, it is sort of you're talking about it's a part of a fabric, and it is not like something which is superimposed on something. So that's the culture that we have created.
Absolutely great. And do you have any mechanism to measure it at your organization? Like, how do you measure it at PAL? What is how your policies are getting implemented, and how that intent is getting implemented? Do you have any mechanism, any formula to measure it?
So Deepak, what happens is, while there are tools that you use, which is customer satisfaction survey, you analyze the calls that are coming on your toll-free numbers. We also have a mechanism whereby, we initiate survey of customers where we check their feedback done by the third-party agency. So all those tools are always there. The policies are already there, which is built around that. I think, the single most factor, and this is, sort of my personal thing, because this is something which is very close to my heart. I think the most important thing is our own connect with the customer or with our own people, that a good sense of where you stand, So while there are n number of tools and data and graphs and bars available, but I personally depend quite a lot on my own experience. So I travel quite a lot to my branches and to the field, and I ensure that, I can speak to customers myself, or at least I can speak to my own people who are like, giving me some good feedback, a very raw feedback, which is very unfiltered kind of a feedback.
Right.
So, when you talk to senior management and other people, you will always, generally, my experience is that, they will always tell you what you would love to hear. But when you go to the field level, very raw kind of people, they will tell you the way things are, So I think that's the best way I seek feedback, besides all the formal tools that we use. So that first-hand feedback is something, me and my co-founder, we greatly depend upon even today.
Fantastic. I think that's the best way of judging it, because no metrics can define can give you that kind of clarity.
And generally, my sense is they will try and manipulate things. You're paying the agencies, maybe your other machineries also. So it is always good to have that, first-hand feedback yourself.
Absolutely. So now I would like to move away from CX and Pahal basically, and I would like to have your point of view on.
I think any entrepreneur, the first thing that I would say is the culture of your organization is most critical thing.
Right.
When we meet up with a lot of investors, and when they ask us the biggest challenge, we always say that, our people, getting the right people, ensuring that we are able to pass on the culture and the value system that we have built is the biggest challenge that we see. So I think anybody who is starting afresh should pay a lot of attention to the culture if you really go a long way, and if you want to create a very sustainable and a great organization.
Right.
So I think the culture has to be worked upon. The first thing is the kind of culture that you create, and that has to go straight to your, it has to become a DNA of your company. Second thing I think would be, I would very strongly advise that, generally as entrepreneurs, we get defocused quite often.
Yeah. That's true.
Seeing a lot of opportunities, and we see this can also be done, that can also be done. So at times it is very critical that you remain very focused on what you are doing, and stay focused on the basics first, because in your zeal to do something really outstanding, you should not lose your focus on some of the very basic things.
Right.
And always maintain customer connect. I think that is single most advice that I would give anybody who wants to start. The day when you lose your connect with your customer, you are a failure. So I think this is very important from my point of view.
Absolutely.
For any entrepreneur.
Makes sense. Okay, and I have another observation. I've been meeting a lot of people across industry, across size and verticals. I think one common observation which I've seen is that if you look at, especially in context to Indian startup system, when people who start any venture, initially when they have nothing in hand, right, they go all out and they put everything into it to make it a success, right? And moment they are able to generate some kind of result which take care of their basic bread and butter, or they achieve a scale where they are able to just meet their ends, right? Certainly I've seen there is a very, very huge dip in their risk-taking appetite, right? They become more conservative, and then they in the fear of taking going even a step ahead. And we see a lot of good organizations, a lot of good models, which then they don't see that future which they belong to. And they end up being a mediocre company or at a particular scale, and then they die their own death as per that.
if you ask me, and I hate to talk about being very gender specific, but females generally are very, balanced in risk taking. So females are quite, they generally take very calculated risks. So I also put myself into that category. I have an excellent co-founder. So between two of us, we make a very beautiful combination. So sometimes when he is going overboard, I will pull him down. Sometimes when I go overboard, he will ensure that things are balanced. But you agree that when you don't have when you have no fear to lose anything, your risk taking capacity is very high. But I think it is like this cannot be black and white, that you are willing to take a lot of risk and you are not willing to take it at all. So somewhere you have to have a very balancing mindset. Not only on this, but on a lot of parameters. When you are in your own business, you are running an organization where people's livelihood depend on you. Risk is must. You cannot have a day when you are not thinking of taking a next risk. And at times, and we keep discussing internally that sometimes what happens is during the crisis time, that's the best time to do something very different or take a risk, and that is exactly what we are trying to do also. So I think calculated risk always should be taken, but at times you can also go a little overboard, because being an entrepreneur, you can't settle for average or balanced every time. Sometimes you have to take risk. You can't grow without that.
Absolutely. So I think learning from me is that I should take advice from the female before getting into the next thing. I will have a balance. I will have a balanced advice on that.
Our business model is also such, because all our customers by default are women. So
you told me that.
And that is for a reason.
Right.
That women are generally very good, repayer also. So responsible when it comes to repayment also, because they are more. They are generally more worried about their credit report and all of those things. So generally, I think that's a requiring that you are balanced.
So you don't give it to loan to males, or what? You prefer giving it to females?
Yes. So microfinance across the world happens mostly for women. So 99% of our borrowers would be women at any point in time, because the objective of doing microfinance is to ensure that woman is empowered enough in the family. So, because typically everywhere male is the bread earner for the family, and when woman starts earning and contributing economically, she gets more respect in the family, and whatever incremental earning she gets, she brings on table towards health and education of a family. So in all, it goes towards having a better family. And of course, when you economically contribute, that really helps you, in your overall status in the society. So
no debate on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Other observation which I have, and which I want your view on that is, now if you look at the entire environment right now, it's very dynamic. The customers are changing, the customer behavior is changing, the product gets changed, right? Earlier, I think average product life cycle of any business model was around 25 years. Today, it has reduced to, I think, 2 years, and I think now we can talk in months also. And I've seen a lot of founders who start with a particular business model, and they get so obsessed with whatever they're doing that they don't want to change, and then they want to focus only on that, and they can blame the entire world, the entire customer set, or the entire market, that people are not ready for my product, or people are not understanding what I'm trying to sell.
As I said, if you are connected with the customers, with the field, with your market, I think your eyes and ears have to be open every day. There cannot be any, I can't say that I will review it only every 6 months, or maybe every quarter, or every year. I think you have to keep your eyes and ears open, one for your own products, and two for the kind of new opportunities that might come your way. related to the existing product or something new, from the same set of customers. So that's what we very firmly believe that, it's a daily process. It is like every day, today, what is required. I can't say that I'll keep my eyes and ears closed and wait for the day when I want to change. No, you have to change the day when your customer wants you to change. If you
Absolutely.
it and react to those changes, then you can't be you can't be in business for a long time.
Absolutely. Great. So, if we talk about you, I think it's been now 8 to 9 years you have been into this journey now. So, if you want to share any two moments or one moment, whatever you think, the defining moment, okay, right or wrong, quit or continue.
I tell you, Deepak, and I'm sure you also would have gone through this moment a number of times.
Every day.
I think at least for the first 3 years, every day I was tempted to go back to work because, it was my philosophy that I wanted to leave my corporate career the day when I was at the peak of my career.
Right.
And I had won some award in 2010 for leading woman in telecommunications while I was with Vodafone. And that was the time I made up my mind that, I think this may be a good time for me to quit and start something on my own. But having done that, I think first 3 years, I don't think even one day I would have not regretted leaving my very well-paid corporate jobs.
Right.
Because, since you were serving at a in a senior capacity, you were always entitled to get so many things which generally had taken for granted,
Right.
And I thought it was so basic that you have to get,
Absolutely.
travel outstation. And I realized that when I started my own company,
Right.
for 1 year I used to think 100 times before hiring. So, those habits and those, the definition of very basic had to undergo a metamorphosis. Had to every day I used to regret that why I left, and I used to get a lot of offers also on those first 2-3 years. People were willing to rehire me at a much better position, offering me much better salaries. And at least once I remember that I almost made up my mind that okay, let me quit this and go back because this sounds too good to refuse.
Right.
And I said, no, I need to stick to my purpose and can't move me anymore.
Right.
And, so that was, I think, first 3 years, every day possibly.
Absolutely.
Good part is, when you get recognized, the satisfaction of, when we reached 1,000 people, we reached, a portfolio of 500 crores. I think a milestone which really made me feel good that you are able to, instead of complaining, now you are able to hire about 1,000 people, and today we have about 1,250 people, so roughly, and these are all in very remote rural geographies, and people who are not very skilled, so they are not the ones who will get the job also very easily. So if you are able to employ this category of people in very remote geography where otherwise they have to migrate to bigger cities and in slums and work. So typically you are feeding at least 4,000 people or 5,000 people. So that's the biggest single most satisfaction as well as responsibility that every day me and my co-founder keep talking and sharing that that gives us sleepless nights that we are responsible for feeding 5,000 people. So that's the biggest satisfaction and biggest responsibility for us, but very satisfying.
Great.
So there are no boundaries for your ambition.
Right.
So we are obviously looking at being a pan-India footprint for our company with a sizable increase in the portfolio. So maybe 2,500-3,000 crore kind of a portfolio over a period of next 3 to 5 years. That's how we are looking at ourselves, and we also want to our aspiration is to provide all the products and services for this category of people. So while we are very, we really want to stay focused on the segment because, we very firmly believe that we know this segment so well that, we can do a very good service to this segment. So we just stay focused on this segment and offer as many products and services as we can. Pan India footprint is what our 3 to 5 year objective is.
Great, fantastic, and all the best. And one question which is pertaining to my interest basically, that moment you heard about the title of the book which I shared with you, what comes first in your mind?
I think I really loved the title, because I think that is something that as entrepreneurs we always stand for. You have to have Junoon, passion, without which you just can't start. Jugaad is something, every day is needed, you have to be smart enough. And what's the third word?
Jarurat, need. Jarurat, yeah.
Jarurat, yeah. So, I think as long as you're alive, you need to keep yourself challenging every day. So I think Jarurat is not for anybody else, but that is my interpretation. That was my interpretation when I first saw this title.
Right.
Jarurat is not for anybody else, it is for my own self, that I need to keep myself active, challenged. And you have to create some or the other challenge, something new that you can do, and that's a real requirement or a Jarurat. Fantastic title. My compliments to you for coming up with such a brilliant title. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. And how important do you think these three critical elements are for any business to succeed?
Sorry, come again?
How important do you think that these three elements, that Junoon, Jarurat and Jugaad, are critical for any business to succeed or to go ahead?
I think more than business, it is like, these are the requirements of being an entrepreneur. So if an entrepreneur can imbibe all these values, or an entrepreneur has all these elements in him or her, then they should think of doing a business, because these are like prerequisite of becoming entrepreneur. So, unless you have, I think passion is something which will make you start. Jugaad is something which will make you survive, and Jarurat is something that will keep challenging you all the time and keep you going. So I think
wonderful.
You can't think of starting unless you have it in you.
Absolutely. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks a lot.